What's up, Skirts Up Squad? Did you just take my line? It's Samantha
and Melissa.
I'm going to actually tell you guys how it is right now.
It was so funny.
We couldn't even make it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to wear it in public. And she looks at me and she goes, that's what Jesus is for.
We are about normalizing things that are hard to talk about.
So I was like, deer in headlights, skirts out. But keep your panties on. What's up, Skirts Up Squad? It's Samantha.
And Melissa.
I want to say that I had this like big aha moment.
You did. So, and it has to do with our last episode we just released. So hopefully you guys are on top. I know you're on top of it. You've listened to it. You've listened to all.
Okay. And what's so funny is this all comes together. This all comes together because you, Melissa, came on today and you were like, I actually don't really want to talk about fails right now. I just want to talk about positivity. And, and I was like, okay, that's works for me. That's fine. Because sometimes we just need positivity. And we just don't even have the energy or we don't need to reflect all the time about everything.
Look, exactly. And honestly, I love that we're able to turn fails into successes sometimes. But when you said energy, it made me I think that was it. I didn't have the energy to try to look at something and turn it to success today. I just want to only think positive. I need that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I really feel that. And you're freaking right. We don't always have to sit here and be like, what's the lesson? That's just another thing. We don't have to do that all the time. But then I was just kind of thinking about how our last episode, Kathy talks about how just the literal releases all these endorphins and all these positive things into your body. And then I was like, oh my God, Melissa, this is why we always feel so good when we get together, because I know that we've talked about in the past in the intros how sometimes we're just really dragging. I mean, we do this on Mondays. Everyone's dragging on Mondays anyways. And sometimes we just really don't want to do an intro, even though it has nothing to do with the podcast or you guys or us even. It's just another thing to do. I don't want to.
We're dragging.
Yeah.
We're already in a funk maybe.
Yes, exactly. And so what's really funny is that we were like, man, why? We always come away and we just feel so much better and we're ready to conquer the rest of the day. But then it just clicked and made so much sense. It's because we start laughing during the intros and we're just happy. We're smiling and our bodies just have this time to release all the happiness. And then it just,
we're literally releasing chemicals endorphins, right? Yeah. That are the happy thing they call it or something. Who else is changing lives by bringing positivity to people?
Suzzie is very positive and she
really is.
She's just got even a positive voice. She's a professional doula. Is that kind of what you would say? What I personally really enjoy about this episode is that because of her profession, she's curious and interested and asks questions about my birth. I've had 3 of them. And I actually start to talk and share for the very first time the scariest birth that I ever had, which was my second, and how we both almost died.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like we talk about a lot of things. I had never known that. And I felt like I was in a really special place getting to be there and witness you two having conversation about it. And she's amazing at it. And that's why she does what she does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she doesn't just help people through the birth, but listen to the episode. You'll see she does a lot of aftercare. I just finished with, this is also, I don't have kids. This was a really good episode for me to hear because it helps you know how you can relate to your friends and family and be there for them.
Yeah.
When they're going through what they're going through.
That also, though, makes me wonder, you have been very open and honest with all of us about how bad you wanted kids. Do you feel like this episode, was it hard for you to talk about?
Was it triggering?
Yeah.
I was worried that it would be. I looked at it and through the lens of, this is how we can be there for each other. And no, it was not. If this is something that's triggering for some people, because they're just too in the thick of it right now, we are talking about birthing and children. So just know that. Hopefully, and maybe you can look at it through the lens that I did.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
So,
all right.
Birth away. Today we have with us Suzzie Vehrs. She is a doula and she also coaches women. And I feel like it goes beyond being a doula. And so before I just kind of really screw this up, hi, Suzzie.
Hi. Hi, Suzzie.
Did I at least say your name right?
You did, yes. It's Suzzie Vehrs, kind of like the word beer, but with a V. My last name is kind of like a made-up last name from it was a German word first. It's my ex-husband's last name.
Oh.
But when his family emigrated from through Ellis Island, they had to like write a name and they like shortened their name from Ingviersen to Vehrs. So there's not too many of us, and it's totally made up. So I love that about it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
If you remarry, will you keep it?
That is so hard because I am in the best relationship. I met the love of my life. We have been together for 4.5 years. He's the best father to my kids, but we haven't gotten married. And part of that is I struggle with not having the same last name as my children. So don't know about that. Undecided.
That's fair.
Well, that's totally fair. Okay, so tell us how about yourself, how you got into, you're a doula first.
Yes.
And then you also have like a women's empowerment program?
Yeah. I can tell you all about it. I know
Okay.
not very many people even know what a doula is. So a doula works with people through childbirth. There's birth doulas and postpartum doulas. So birth doulas help you with your birth plan. They are your continuous support through labor. So typically I will meet with people well before they're able to get checked into the hospital, labor with them at home, help them do the smart things like stay hydrated, eat, walk, manage some rest in there as well, help them kind of like know what to do so they're being proactive and taking care of themselves through the process. And the hospital, we're there to advocate, to remind them of the skills they practiced for labor, help them cope with pain, help them even ask for things like, even if you get an epidural, there are so many things you should be doing after an epidural to kind of help the baby that can kind of like reduce the risk of a C-section. So just helping moms stay proactive with that. Postpartum, I didn't know what a postpartum doula was when I became
I've never heard of that.
But then I started seeing like all my moms, we'd have like these great births, and then I'd check in with them a few months later and they were like, drowning in postpartum. And I was seeing my peers doing postpartum care and I was like, what is this thing called a postpartum doula? And it is the best thing in the world. Like you literally go, you like snuggle a baby, you help with breastfeeding, you give a mom a chance to rest, you might cook. Some postpartum doulas do and some don't cook meals. I love cooking and I believe it's an essential part of healing. So I make a lot of meals for families and it gives moms a chance to like sleep, recuperate, check in with their, emotional, like a lot of times when I get there, we'll talk for an hour and then there's tears and then there's like release and then they go sleep and I take care of the baby and, do a few chores and things like that. And I typically do like at this point in my career, I'm with people for 6 visits and those can be 6 4-hour visits and they're anywhere in the first 6 months. So sometimes I'm with people through they reach out when they need help, basically. Some people need that right in the immediate postpartum. Some need it when they're going back to work or partners are going back to work or just when it gets too overwhelming. So, yeah.
What do you find that women, I would have a hard time reaching out if I needed help. I just do as a human.
Yeah.
Do you find like that there are certain things that you can do or just kind of like so that they know that they do
What the options are.
Take you up on that?
Yes, I think that it depends on the culture because I live in Seattle and we have we have people from all over the world here. And I think that's very American to feel like I have to do this all on my own.
Okay.
For my like Asian families I work with, they expect to have 40 days of rest where everything's taken off of their plate. So for them, it's very easy and it's very natural and They also tend to be very open. Like even if they're planning on breastfeeding, they're typically like trying to get that bottle and that pumping going around week 2 or 3 so that, or sometimes even immediately from birth, so that all of the tasks can be shared between doulas, husbands, birth partners, whatever that looks like, mother-in-laws, mothers, family that's here. In those cultures, the idea that a mother should do it on its own is like absurd and crazy and silly. For American moms, yes, it is in the package they buy. It's the only one I sell. So if you don't want the help, you don't get, like, I will not work with you anymore.
Okay.
Because
So they
I
have to
hate
come and ask.
seeing, right. Like, I hate seeing people when you follow up with them and they're drowning. And so I just kind of made a decision for me, for this work to feel good, I cannot not offer that support. We have thousands of good doulas here in Seattle. It's almost a lot of the companies give reimbursements for it. So most people have a doula. So if you want a doula that just attends your birth or just does postpartum, you can so easily find that here. But for me, I don't like it is a really bad feeling because I know that postpartum is challenging.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't know how to ask for help. So to be like checking in and be like, okay, we need to get this scheduled. How are you doing? What's going on? Like it gives me permission to check in on them more often. And then when they do say like, oh, I'm exhausted, I don't think it's a good time because all I would do is hand you the baby, I get to say like, exactly.
Yeah.
Like exactly, like sleep is a fundamental human need. Like if all you do while I'm there is you're going to sleep for 4 hours interrupted and you haven't slept for 4 hours interrupted in a month,
it's a dream for some
let's
women
get that
at
on
that
your
point.
plate. Let's get your dog walked. Let's get your food made. Let's get your baby taken care of and happy. So yeah. Yeah. But it is a common conversation I have to have with people about like, yeah, this is what postpartum hours are for.
I wouldn't know what I
these very
need.
tender moments. Most people don't. A doula does though. Like that's my job to know what you need and to look at you and be like, oh, I walked into this house and like the diaper pail needs to be emptied and that, like like it's my job to be able to sense that and to do it in a compassionate way. And so, yeah.
And so that nobody feels judged.
Yeah. And to normalize that it's this hard. Like you're not bad at it. It is just this hard. Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought that a doula, I don't know why I thought this. This is so stupid.
Nobody knows what a doula is.
I thought that a doula was like the like natural pathway, like they deliver the baby, like at
A
home birth.
midwife.
Yeah,
is that
would be a midwife. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, midwives and OBs are kind of like similar in the fact that like a midwife and OB are both there for the medical purposes, whereas a doula is like for the emotional and physical companionship. Yeah. That's a lot of people think that. And a lot of people get worried because I do both home and hospital births. A lot of people are very scared about people giving birth in home, but I think it's way more common than people know.
Yeah.
I feel like you're seeing that more and more. And I don't know. There's a lot. I feel like it could be very beautiful and I feel like, but it could be terrifying. Like I know my births are terrifying. So like for me, it's just like, I can't fathom.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard about your birth stories in the episodes I've listened to.
I actually, now that you say that, yeah, I don't think that we've ever talked about it. I mean, my first one, I had him when I was in high school and that labor was like 16 hours. It felt like forever. And of course I was in high school. So
16 hours is a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah. But then there's child number 2 and I was in the hospital in labor for 28 hours. And then they finally were I was finally able to start pushing and start giving birth. But then there was like a shoulder dystocia, something happened. She died. I went into like septic shock or something. And so they were about to take me to the OR and then they got Amelia back alive and then they got me figured out. And so it was like a whole thing. And then baby number 3, they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like you're having a C-section and we're not even discussing it. And I was like, okay, I don't really want one, but I get it. I don't want to do that either.
Yeah. Wow, that is so much to go through. I am sorry that happened.
It was a lot. And actually, maybe, I don't know if this is like something that you kind of like handle with and deal with, talking about Amelia's birth. So I was a hot mess. Like, I mean, even the doctor, like a few hours later after I'm in my room, she like comes in, she sits on the bed next to me and she goes, I want to be able to answer any questions you have. Like, a lot was going on. And of course, I'm just like a hormonal mess. And I was out of it. Like, I don't know what was happening. I was unconscious and like seizing. So like, I don't know what was happening. Like, you tell me. And then it took years. I mean, probably 8 years to talk to other people about her birth, to like where I wasn't hysterically crying. And then I almost felt like we were trauma bond. She was never out of my sight. I wouldn't sleep, not because she was a bad sleeper, but because I was terrified for some reason that something was going to happen to her. And so she slept right against me, and she just didn't leave my side, and we were just bonded.
Yeah. Yeah. Very common. About 45% of people have birth trauma. So something that's going to take a couple of years to recover from. I think the expectation is we bounce back in 6 weeks. Not true. And about a third of people have diagnosable PTSD after their birth. So
they told me it was postpartum PTSD after her or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you are willing to share that story, because I think a lot of people, when you go through experiences like this, it's like you look around you and you see just people's highlights reel on Instagram, and it feels so isolating to think like I'm the only one that feels this way, or like, what if something happens to my baby now? Or I think there's I mean, you realize how fragile human life is when you work around birth, right?
Yeah.
And that instinctive response to protect the person you love so much is such an important response, but also something that I think we need to be able to talk about and get support on when the anxiety, when we are safe again. That how does our mind and body like truly feel and find that safety is a whole nother journey,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I know that my mom, she was in the room, and she still cries anytime someone brings it up or like asks questions about it. Like, so she's traumatized, and she didn't even go through it. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
I don't plan on going to my own children's birth. I mean, I can be very useful in the birth room, but I know that I will be very anxious when watching my daughters when they're in that phase.
Yeah.
My oldest is only 11 now, so I have time, but yeah, it's with the shoulder dystocia, did they kind of tell you what happened or help you kind of understand all of that, or did you kind of have to figure it out on your own?
I don't
Over
really
the
know.
months and years when you got home?
When you say figure it out, like, what do you mean?
Well, like sometimes, I know with my clients, sometimes things happen so quickly, especially at the hospital, where it's like you go through something where your life was truly in danger, or your child's life was truly in danger. And then there's like this big word put on it, like most people don't know what that means. And then because there's so much stress when they talk about it that minute after, or the couple hours later, and that day you're still in the hospital, or 2 days you're in the hospital, it's like there's not time to like process or understand. Or
what is shoulder dystocia?
What I remember, or what my understanding is that just the shoulder got stuck behind the pelvic bone, which prevented her from coming out longer than she should have, meaning she didn't get oxygen as fast as she should, meaning that's why she was not alive when she was born. That's my understanding. I don't really know. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the shoulder gets stuck, and then usually it's like in most cases it's a really quick fix where the doctor or midwife just like bloop, and moves the baby and rotates the shoulder, like tucks the shoulder, and they pop out. But they can be very scary, like the moment. It is more common to like need oxygen or extra support at the time of birth. How long did it take before she took her first breath? Do you know?
I don't know because I was so out of it. So I actually don't have the answer to that. I do remember I had I think there was a practitioner or a midwife that was learning, and then there was the doctor behind her, like just observing. And then I remember, well, at least I don't remember actually. This is what my mom said. So it got to the point where things started getting like really hectic. And the doctor is like, telling the one practicing like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this before she just literally like was like, okay, move. And then like she didn't even have gloves on. She was like, she asked for gloves, they didn't come fast enough. And then she just goes inside without gloves, like to do something and get the baby out. And so then they got her, and then I remember alarms going off. So they like pulled a code for her. And then I remember convulsing a lot. And being like out of it. And then I don't know if I remember hearing this or if my mom's told me because that's kind of like blurred together. But then the problem was why I was convulsing is that because I was in labor for so long, I got a very high fever, which was kind of leading to, I guess they were worried about like a sepsis type thing because also something was wrong with my placenta and they couldn't get the placenta out. And every time they touched it, it was falling apart. And so then she was starting to get like really, really like concerned. She was like, we got to go to the OR. But then something happened and they were able to not.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Melissa. I feel like I'm like.
No, I have no experience. This is interesting.
Yeah. Well, and it really does, like, it seems like things stack up like that, especially like once there's an infection or a fever, it's like the whole body, like, like you lose the power behind your contractions, which kind of makes the whole idea of like getting the baby to rotate.
That's probably, I wonder what happened.
Like everything kind of like shuts down sometimes after infections. And I'm so sorry you went through that. I've been in a few like really scary. Okay, so infections themselves are usually treatable with antibiotics. If the antibiotics are not quick enough at taking effect, because infections can be like, like any infection, they can like low ride and be fine. But if an infection kind of like takes off really quickly before antibiotics really get a chance to they can just go really fast. And it makes the uterus lose its power behind the contractions. And once that power is gone, then the uterus, like, it doesn't have as much strength to be like moving the baby out. So like even when you're pushing, you're only adding like maybe 10 to 15% of power of what your uterus is already doing. Like women who are unfortunately unconscious when they go into labor will still deliver their babies without ever like bearing down and pushing because the uterus is just that strong. However, you have an infection and that disappears, then all the other once that power is gone, then like, okay, like, yeah, you are more likely to have a baby that gets stuck and you are more likely to have a placenta that doesn't detach. And you are then more likely to like everything just kind of like boom, 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 boom.
So then they should have like expected
it
essentially. Like they should have like they basically should have known like what
if you had
was
like
to
a
come.
really high fever, they like that's a pretty
interesting.
There's very few things that scare me in labor. Fevers are one of them.
Interesting.
Because everything to me, like those are the situations where like, I have been so fortunate with the amount of births that I've been to that I've never attended. I've only attended a loss like after a surgical procedure where it was already known. Like I was called in because there was a loss, not like one of my clients having a loss for a baby or a mother. And statistically, like I know that I'm very fortunate with the amount of labors I've attended. But yeah, it does just seem like once that fever is there, like that's moves you into like let's be ready to act quickly type situations. And as a doula, there's not much I can do. Like
I was about to
say,
if I'm unconscious, other than like what can you do?
Yeah. Like in the few situations that I've been in where like a mom has gone unconscious, a lot of it is like helping the family know what's going on because
caring for the people.
Yeah, caring for the family and also keeping them out of the way because like family who is scared are going to try to ask the doctors what's going on. And it's like they need to know because but there isn't time. Like, if people need to be acting quickly and getting blood transfusions and things like that. You can't have a husband being like, look at me, like I need to know, like that's me. That's
amazing.
No, you look at me, like I will tell you what's happening and they are going to get her through this, but we cannot interrupt them right now. So, yeah, and then I go to my car and I cry for like hours before I go home.
I can imagine. That's
but-
intense.
Luckily, those situations don't happen often. They are so hard to live through. So hard. And on the postpartum side, it's a lot to recover from. Physically, emotionally, spiritually.
What was the thing with
Yeah.
sorry, I just keep wondering, the placenta, like I
don't
don't know.
know.
I always
I don't
thought the
know.
placenta just kind of like came right out. I don't really know anything about this. Like, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. So the placenta is supposed to detach in like usually 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it takes up to an hour. It just naturally like detaches and you continue to have like these lighter contractions that help deliver the placenta.
Okay.
If you have an infection and that's kind of like interfering with, your normal biology, you can have a retained placenta. That's more common after an infection. You can also like just have a retained placenta. That's when the body doesn't like discharge the placenta as it's supposed to. And then they have to go in either with their hands or they do like a DNC where they use like surgical tools to like suction it.
Yeah.
So kind of like they do after a miscarriage, right? Like if you had a miscarriage
Yeah.
kind of later, then they'll do a DNC where it's like a it's almost like a little vacuum, but yeah, it sweeps it, pulls everything out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what they did, and I don't know what would have caused and what caused it. I don't know.
I'm sorry. That birth is like wildly unpredictable sometimes, and that like I'm so glad we have medical systems, and I can appreciate like the free birth movement where people are like, I'm going to do this on my own. But I could never attend those births because even though I know that most births go well when they're well supported and you have good health throughout the pregnancy, there's no guarantees. And
So
those
natural
moments
births
with
just aren't
these-
your thing either.
I will attend home births. I do a lot of home births if you have a trained and licensed midwife.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they, like, in the case of like a shoulder dystocia, they would have had to transfer you to the hospital for the fever anyways.
Yeah.
But like for a shoulder dystocia, like they know how to resolve those. They have the oxygen for the baby. They have the Pitocin for bleeding. Like they have a lot of the medical tools at the house.
That makes sense.
Because they are licensed medical providers that they bring to you instead of you going to them. So that's fine. But like the people who are like, no medical support, I'm like, I can't as a doula ethically
support
be the one to support you through this because I'm not prepared. I've never gotten, like I can help move someone's legs. I've done that a few times in shoulder dystocias. Sometimes you have to like move the mother's position really quickly. And I'm fantastic at helping moms. Like I could full-handedly flip a woman with no, who's numb from the waist down into hands and knees in 5 seconds if you needed me to. Like I could do
What
that.
a skill. Is that on your resume?
But like I could not be the one to like put my hands in there and like pull the baby out. So yeah.
Interesting.
And I can see the
it's like all
liability.
these random things that hopefully we don't need that. But we're like, how is that, you don't even want to talk about those situations and put that weight on people's shoulders of knowing like all the what ifs of the most difficult
I know that
situations.
they say that you don't talk about like the what ifs and you don't talk about like the worst
So I was
case
just gonna
scenarios.
say,
But then it's like
the unknown is more scary.
Yeah.
To me, I think it's good to talk. Was that what you were heading towards, Sam? Sorry.
no, I think that it's I don't know. Like I feel like the traumatizing births have to be more common than what they are talked about. So like, yeah, we talk about, oh, the majority of women, you just like labor and you birth, like no big deal. Like it's natural. Women have been doing it forever. But then it's like, okay, well, when they're not easy for you and you labor 16 and then, 28 hours, like am I not normal? I don't know. But like, I'm not the only one. Like, I know that there's others that have a hard
Definitely
time.
not the only one. I think more
Oh.
people struggle in their births than have really, really happy births. I think that it's very common to have, even in a birth from the perspective of like, from the perspective of a doula or a doctor or midwife who's around birth all the time, I think even those births that go like, you're like, oh my God, that was so easy, that was so great. For the mother, that's not always the case, right? And so as the as somebody who's so comfortable with these, you're in extreme situations, you have to be self-aware and remember that like just the fact that contractions are so strong, and that like that intensity of that almost like invading your body, you have to be aware of like this is a mom's like one of the few times, either her first time or one of the
Mhm.
it's not like very many people are having 12 babies where we just remember and go on, like you only do it a couple times, and it's really important as a provider in that space to remember how vulnerable and how scary it can feel even when things go perfectly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, how did you get led to being a doula? What led to this?
Yeah, I always thought like birth was always a huge fear of mine. My first pregnancy I lost at about 14 weeks. It was a molar pregnancy, which is like basically your placenta is growing cancerously, and it led to like a year of like it was wild, a totally wild experience and very medical. My second pregnancy, my ex-husband and family are like super natural, like super, super, like super healthy in every single way. And that was one of the things I loved from them, especially being a person who was not and who really, like I had almost, no, I didn't have good eating habits. I mean, I lived on macaroni and cheese and ramen. And into my 20s, I legitimately thought that like those little chocolate donuts and a soda was like a reasonable breakfast, And enter I had the most incredible mother-in-law, and she's the most healthy person you could ever imagine. And I learned so much from her. So when I was pregnant with Zoe, I was very heavily influenced to do a natural labor. However, my water broke before contractions started. I already had a lot of fear of everything going wrong. My doctor had told me to stay home until like my water broke at night. He said, come in the morning or when your contractions get strong. I go to check into the hospital, and the nurse said the most horrible thing ever to me, which she was like, you stayed home for 12 hours after your water broke. You could have killed your baby while I'm like trying to like
Oh,
check into like
it's a
filling
horrible
out the
thing to say.
paperwork. And at that instant, my labor stopped. Like, I mean, I had been having pretty regular contractions, and I was like, oh, this is great. The stress level in that to me was just like I immediately went into like, the fight, flight, or freeze. Like I wanted to run away, but I couldn't leave the hospital, especially now with this like fear amplified. And then they had to do a whole bunch of things. Like I did Pitocin and medications to get the contractions back and an epidural. And then her heart rate started doing all these wild things. And I had a C-section, and I was like, this is terrible. Like, I mean, they kept telling me like before the C-section, they were like, her heart rate could just go down, and just like, what if it just doesn't come back up? And I was like,
Oh,
okay, take me back for the surgery now, please. And I just had this sense that like a terrible thing could have happened. And being a mom that had gone through like a complex medical situation, I just felt like birth was so dangerous. But then all my friends around me had these like really lovely birth experiences, and I was like mad and jealous about that. And also, then I joined a mom's group, and I became very good friends with a girl who was she was a student becoming a home birth midwife, and we went hiking for about a year. We went hiking together about once a week, sometimes twice a week. And the story she was telling me, I was like, hold up. Like, I feel like I missed something in my birth experience, because the experiences you're having are so wild and so different and so objectively like calm compared to anything I've experienced. And so when I got pregnant with my daughter Hazel, 4 years after Zoe, I was like ready to do the natural thing. But this time I had like the healthy habits. I had a lot of support. We had moved again, so I didn't get to have my friend as a midwife, but I had an incredible midwife. I actually did do a home birth, but in leading up to the birth, like our appointments were like every prenatal was like an hour, sometimes 2 hours long. Like she was also like this therapist and nutrition coach, and she just treated me with a level of kindness and respect. And the first person, not the first person, but the first medical provider in my life that truly saw this, everything I had been going through as both, a physical, medical thing, but also a psychological and emotional and spiritual thing, and really helped me like combine all of that together. I had a very lovely birth with my daughter Hazel. It was very calm, which was wonderful. It was a gift. I mean, I knew it couldn't be. I was a VBAC mom, so I did have the risk of a uterine rupture, which is another like very scary complication. And my midwife had spent probably 5 or 6 hours helping me explore like what does that happen when it's like a mild case? What does it happen if it's extreme? When is it life threatening? What does that look like? So she really took me through like the whole spectrum of like what like for you, what are your risks? What do you do? Like what would all these situations look like? She helped me kind of explore the idea of like in our appointments, we literally talked through like how do you feel about loss? Like because that was such a big deal for me from coming from loss. I was like, it always felt real to me that I could lose my life or that I could lose a child in the birth process.
Yeah.
And she just did a phenomenal job of helping me explore those fears and um, help me like feel stable and safe making decisions and learning how to advocate for myself and take care of myself. I truly feel like she changed my life. My doula also was phenomenal, and she was the first one to kind of attend my birth or to get to my birth when I was in labor with Hazel. And, like honestly, I look back, she didn't do so much because they prepped me so well. But like just her presence and like anytime I would have this moment of like, am I okay? Because it was lovely doing a natural birth. It was also scary and there were a lot of moments, like she would look at me with so much confidence and so much courage and she'd be like, you're doing great. And I truly believed that. Like that was all really I needed to hear from her. And I remember when I was in transition, like that point in labor where it's like very overwhelming and my contractions were like back to back. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm going to literally break in half right now. And I remember like my ex-husband was holding my hands and I was like looking in his eyes. And I like that had grounded me through most of labor. He was a really good support and for that moment in life. But I remember at that moment, I was like, I don't trust you anymore. Like I looked past to like my doctor or my midwife. She was a
Interesting.
naturopathic doctor. So sometimes, my kids know her as Dr. Brandy because she was their pediatrician as well. And to Tiffany. And she just nodded at me and said, you're going to be okay. And then 2 contractions later, I was pushing and I had to push a really long time. Hazel was like 10 and a half pounds. She was
Oh my
gigantic,
God.
which we did not know before she was born. But like pushing to me was fine. Like it felt a lot better. It just felt right and natural in my body. So I was back into feeling like, oh, I've got this, where transition felt like, eh. But I'll never forget that sense of confidence in me, the sense of care, like when they would check on Hazel and listen to her heartbeat, they use a Doppler instead of the monitors you wear on your belly. And so like physically your midwife is like very close and it's a very intimate experience and you can like hear that sound yourself instead of it kind of being like something that's being watched on the computers over there. It's like very close. And I think when you're close like that, they just naturally chit chat with you about what they're hearing and the reassurances or the things that they're concerned about. And it was really helpful for me to have that like very close one-on-one, very deep relationships with my providers. And so after I had Hazel, I knew I wanted to go into midwifery, but I decided to become a doula first because I didn't have a lot of support at home. Doula is a lot easier, but then I became a doula and I realized like, oh, I actually love being a doula. So I ended up staying here. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Wow. Do you go through any kind of like certification or training
Yeah. So to be a doula, it's uh it's a certification, so it's not like a medical degree by any means. You can do it in about a 6 months to a year. You read a lot of books, write a lot of essays, you attend a few births, you have to get evaluations. And then I was very fortunate where I got to attend a few births with other doulas and kind of learn. I will say that you learn a lot as you go. I know that, like, I feel like my certification did a great job at teaching me the basics, but then you have to keep learning, right? Like, you realize very quickly how complex the emotional, physical, spiritual atmosphere is. And so, even though you can't necessarily, like, you're not the therapist, and you don't have those skills, you do kind of realize like you are going to be the one that people are processing their birth trauma with, and you are going to be the one people are talking to. And so you have to go get more training to kind of meet the needs of the moms you serve, right? But it's a
Wow.
great way to get started.
Wow.
Mm.
That is so interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our listeners know that when we talk about trauma, I have to pee. So I'm going to go pee real quick.
No,
You
that's
guys
so funny
continue talking.
because
I know.
I was just thinking, like, I never have to pee during an episode, and I also have to.
Are you
I'm not
serious?
going to leave you, Suzzie. I won't
Oh, I'm
leave
so
you. Yeah.
sorry. Okay, I'll be right
No.
back. If I remember correctly, Suzzie, part of what you do is work with the women into intimacy. And if I'm remembering correctly, isn't that like kind of frowned upon with where you guys kind of came from?
I would say
It's more
that it's
taboo a little.
considered like, yeah, you don't talk about it much, but like once you're married in the in the context of marriage, you're supposed to like be bunnies,
Yeah.
right? Have fun. But outside of marriage, it's like, but I also don't think we get talk about it a lot. You're right. We were going to talk, so I had reached out to you to talk about intimacy and intimacy after having babies and things like that. But
Yeah. I would actually like to hear about that. That's really interesting because I feel like, how do you do? Well, yeah, I guess just tell us a little bit about that because I have questions, but maybe they'll.
yeah. Well, first off, I'm not like a physical therapist, so I don't help people like treat this in any way. But because I do have such a close relationship with my clients and I've spent so much time with them, and especially in these longer postpartum periods, something that people commonly ask me about is like returning to intimacy after having a baby. Whether it's pain, whether it's like just not feeling like it anymore, or and so I had initially reached out to you because I feel like it's such a almost taboo topic. Like when people kind of pull me aside to talk about it, it's usually like so hush hush, like Suzzie, can we go for a walk today? Or like, hey, I've really been like, you can tell people are kind of like working up their courage to ask, like, am I alone? Am I the
Right.
only one? Like, what do I do about this? I don't know. And so yeah, I had just I don't have all the answers, but I do have a lot of like, as a doula, like it's really important to me that I get people referred to the right person. And for something like having troubles with intimacy or like losing your libido or, like not feeling like that part of you is alive or connected or, that part of you isn't happy anymore.
Yeah.
There's so many different reasons after postpartum. And so, it's not like oh, you always go here or you always go there.
I feel like there's a part of you as a woman where you're kind of raised like with baby dolls and Barbies and all that stuff. And you just feel like that's a part of you is to have children. And like if you
Yeah.
can't have children, that's something I feel like that's something I've struggled with, like not having fulfilled what I think, like I guess like I always thought my life would look like. But I imagine in the same vein, sexuality is a big part of being a woman too. And if you have your child and you have your baby, and then suddenly you feel like you're not desirable anymore, I guess. I don't know. I'm just having to imagine because I've not been in that situation.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that that would kind of like mess with your emotions a lot too, as far as, am I good
Mhm.
enough? Am I everything a woman should be? I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
thinking,
I think that's exactly why it's so sensitive to talk about because even if you're not coming from a culture where it's really taboo to talk about, I think people do ask themselves exactly that. Like, especially like if you, I think there's like such a grief that comes with having children and losing who you were. And if you feel like that part of you is permanently gone or permanently changed or permanently, like
Altered
altered,
even. Yeah.
that's like a very scary thing to even admit that's going through your head. And it's not like, I truly believe that we are designed to heal, but from all the different layers of the physical changes that happen to your body that can create actual pain when you're having, intercourse, from the increased workload. Like if you're breastfeeding a baby, not even breastfeeding, if you're feeding a baby, that's like 40 hours a week of work when they're newborn. Sure, when they're
Wow.
like 4, 5, 6 months, they are so much more efficient. But those first few months, like that's just feeding a baby. That's a full-time job. And it happens at 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. and every like few hours in between.
Yeah.
And that's not cooking the dinner and having your house clean and changing the diapers and soothing them when they're not going to sleep, and you're like, I literally did everything for you and you're tired. Why are you not sleeping? We're talking for hours.
Like, what is happening? What am I doing
Yeah.
wrong?
There's a whole
Whoa.
like psychological shift that's happening. Like your brain changes so much as you go, like pregnancy changes a woman's brain. And I think that process of, I never say this word right, but matrescence, where we kind of step into like what it means to be a mother.
Mm.
There is a grief in that transition from maiden to mother that can interact with intimacy. And then there's just the fact that trauma, like if you went through trauma and you're dealing with symptoms of PTSD, it's not like you can just like turn off one and turn on the other. There's a whole healing journey that kind of needs to go along with that. So, as a doula, when people ask me about intimacy, I always kind of want to know, like, luckily, I typically know more about what happened in their birth because I was there with them through all of it. And typically, by the time a conversation like this happens, I've kind of seen how they're processing things and what's going on in their life. So sometimes I have like
Some
a, a
insider.
some insight and can say like you're doing too much. You probably need to like go talk to a therapist and bring your husband and talk about the like split of the workload, or like,
Mm.
oh hey, this is like actual physical pain. Like this is a really great physical therapist who can like do some internal work and help you kind of like restore your pelvic floor, because you're not meant to like, some people, there's very common things that happen after having a baby. Like, if you pee when you laugh or you sneeze or you have like incontinence or
Right.
pain in your pelvic floor, like that's not supposed to be there. Like that is healable, not through
Oh.
necessarily like a surgery, but just through going to a PT who can help you kind of like
Interesting.
restore some balance. And most people are not told about these things. Like our 6 week checkup is really there to like do a psychological review and see if you need to
Hmm.
go to a therapist, which is good because postpartum depression is so common. We
Hmm.
do need that encouragement to like go get help for that. I know that I suffered a lot of postpartum depression and I always like hid it from everybody because that's who I was, like I
Yeah.
felt shame around having that. But like these other resources, very few people are getting good referrals to the people who can actually help them when there are a lot of tools out there. So,
That is so interesting because I feel like just growing up, you just hear your mother or women or just people say, "Oh, wait till you have kids and your body will be wrecked." And that's that. And it's like you're like, "No, you're saying no. There's
no, your
that's not
body's
normal.
not
That
wrecked.
shouldn't be." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's things that you can
Common and
do.
normal are very different, right? Like it's
You are so
common,
correct.
but it's not how our bodies are. We're not designed to live in pain. We're like, your
Right.
body's designed to heal. And if it's not, like, I remember I had a prolapse after I had Hazel, which is like
Mm.
when you're basically everything in your pelvic floor is like
Falling.
low, kind of feels like you're like have a bowling ball pulling on your pelvic floor all the time.
Oh,
It was like really painful. I had to do so much breath work, but you know what? It healed 100%. Like
okay.
100%.
Breath work?
Oh my God. Like my PT had me doing the things that I thought were so dumb. Like I'd
Really?
sit there with like my hand on my belly and she'd be like, shh, shh. You know, like I had to breathe like that so much. And like she'd be like, okay, like, are you pulling up your pelvic floor when you're doing that? Like, can you engage your core and your pelvic floor? And at first it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I can't feel anything in my pelvic floor other
Right.
than it aches.
Interesting.
And I spent like so many, like literally so many hours she had me doing stuff that in my head I was like, this is the stupidest stuff I've ever. But you know what? It worked.
That's
And
amazing.
I think that's the thing is sometimes like one, we can be mad that we have to do things like this, but two, if it gets you to where you want to go, it's worth it. So
Okay. I
yeah,
love that. Thank you.
yeah.
One of the things that would be amazing, I feel like for me, if it were a thing, were like, okay, so you said, when you said that breastfeeding is already like a 40-hour job,
Yeah.
when you put it into perspective like that, and then like, I just feel like getting that before the baby comes out of like the breakdown of like, hey, like feeding the baby is a 40-hour job. And,
Right.
then go back to the spoon theory of like, you're going to have so many spoons. This is already taking up majority of them. So let's think about where you need assistance. You might need assistance here, or like, where do you think that energy can get pulled? Because I think that prepares people so much more of what they can do. Like, I think that would have helped a lot. I don't know. That just kind of like, I was like, oh, light bulb, that would have helped so much because I always wanted to breastfeed and it didn't work with the first one. The second one, I was determined, but then doctors like made me stop because they were like, look, you're not
Oh
producing.
no.
Yeah, they were like, you're not producing. She is rapidly losing weight. Like, I don't want to
Oh,
tell you this, but like, you have to. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, fine. And then third one, I was like, we're doing it. It's happening. And then like I remember I was doing it so much. I was feeding so much and then pumping in between like when she's not feeding. And then like it still wasn't happening. And then my husband and my mom were like, well, you're just not pumping enough. Like you're not being patient enough. Like you just gotta pump. And I'm like,
how
how many more hours can I sit here doing this? Like all I'm doing is being hooked to a wall. And I was so frustrated. But like hearing
Yeah.
like how like long, like how many hours you really put into it, like I felt like I probably was putting in 40 hours and I was still being told like, you're not being patient enough. Like you just gotta do it
wow.
more. And it's like, what else could I have done?
Right.
That's
Right.
rough.
Well, and that's like another thing that's like so frustrating to me as a doula because I feel like that happens all the time from families who are like looking at a mom and saying you're not doing enough when it's like she
Mm.
is doing so freaking much. And it's like you don't choose to be an underproducer or an overproducer, right? Like that's not,
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
I'm not
yeah,
saying that they were being unsupportive. Like I actually like they're
yeah.
very, very, very supportive. But it was like in that moment, it's like, this is not what I need to hear. Something productive would be nice. Like I'm already attached. So then it just kind of made me like give up faster, like, okay, you're
Mhm.
right. This isn't for me. This isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We really tried to work on that. Like I have a birth course that's online and we have like the last section is about postpartum and about like baby feeding. And I really encourage like partners to do that together because I think that so often it's a shock to everybody in the family how much babies need with the first baby. I don't know if it was like that for you, Sam, but for me, I just remember thinking like, how can keeping one human alive like take so much effort and energy, you know? And a lot of my families are like, oh, this is like a two-person job to take care of one
Wow.
newborn. Like, how is this possible? I'm like, you do get better at it, and baby newborns do get easier. And I think, after you've kind of been around one baby, you're like, you like throw them in the carrier and you cart them around with you and you just realize they kind of do their thing wherever. But that first one, like, man, if you don't have like the proper expectations, like you can adjust, people do adjust, but when that workload then gets put on like one person because there's
Hmm.
just a lack of understanding of how much it is, like that's when one of the places where as a doula, it's like, okay, like sometimes we are sitting there with partners and being like, I hate to tell you
Okay.
this, but you got to do your part.
I was gonna
Yeah.
These
ask,
are your
like,
jobs. Like you need to do like when you look at this dyad and what's happening like in this, like if the goals of this family is to be you're trying to increase breast milk and so a mom's doing it is like a crazy thing to expect. Did you have to do triple feeds where you like fed the baby, then topped them off with a bottle and then pumped?
No, I
Okay.
never did that. It was
So
just
you
like,
were pumping and breastfeeding,
uh-huh.
which is also crazy. And did they ever like fit you for like a flange or like teach you about the settings?
I had
Okay,
like
that's
this like
good.
rubber nipple thing that like I'd have to put on, and then like yeah, there was like different like shaped sizes
Yeah.
things to put in.
Oh my gosh.
Melissa's like,
It's
what are you
so
talking
much.
about?
no, it
Rubber
makes
nipple.
sense. It makes sense if you're
Yeah.
pumping. And
Yeah.
so that leads me to wonder, do you have a requirement? Like when you're a doula for someone, do you kind of like say, hey, I need your husband on board, I need your mother on board, or like whoever it is that's your support system? Do you kind of pull everyone in and talk to like them as a group ever?
It kind of depends on the family. Like it is
Sure.
not a requirement in any way for me to work with the family. I suppose like most people, like the contract, both parents have to sign the contract and
Okay.
it is like an investment. So I assume they're like on board together usually. However, when it comes to the prenatal appointments, I do encourage partners to be there. I don't require it. And I do in postpartum, it kind of depends on what's happening, like if I'm talking with a mom who's like clearly everything is on her side, or like sometimes it will, like I'll be working with a family and like I go to do a postpartum shift and the mom is clearly overwhelmed, has been doing too much. And then the dad is sitting there like playing video games. And in that
Yeah.
case, it's like, that doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's like, hey, like, how about you follow me today and I can teach you what I'm doing? And sometimes they're open to that and they're like, I had no idea what I could do. And I'm like, I can like then be like, okay, like, like I will say that I have worked with men that are extraordinarily competent and just like on top of everything, and others who are just like clueless. But most of them want to be involved. They just literally do not know how to.
Okay.
And like that, like, I think sometimes in postpartum, like not knowing what to ask for or not knowing yourself, like what you need, like you're figuring it out and then trying to teach someone else also
Yeah.
can be a lot. So, like, yeah, if I see that dynamic in a house, like, obviously I can't fix it on my own. But a lot of times, if I invite a dad to shadow or if I'm like, oh, like, can I show you how I'm feeding the baby with the bottle so that
Yeah.
like, how you hold a baby can kind of affect, you want if the mom's trying to be able to go from like breastfeeding to bottle feeding pretty seamlessly, like how you bottle feed the baby can affect the breastfeeding. So like to teach
Okay.
the dad those skills and make sure he's like not sabotaging the
Wow.
breastfeeding part accidentally, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
Yeah.
know
you just
that.
kind
Dads
of
don't
like
know what they don't
respond to
know.
things. Very few people teach women what to expect, and even fewer people teach dads. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
Simon was the best. I remember probably the first or second, no, it was probably the first night that we were home. I remember I dozed off in bed and I woke up and he's literally on his phone. And I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm trying to learn how to do the swaddle. And he literally has the blanket in front of him. He's watching YouTube and he's sitting here trying to like learn how to swaddle. And I was like, the baby's sleeping, like
That is
sleep.
so
That's
cute.
beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and the first night, he's amazing. He is an amazing human. The first night that we got home, it was my first C-section. Obviously, I hadn't done that before, and we realized that I couldn't get into the bed.
Yeah, it's hard after surgery.
In the bed, it was high. It's a high bed, and so it's like, I mean, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning before we like made it to bed, and it's our first night home, and I couldn't get into bed, so he literally went to Walmart or yeah, he like went to Walmart and he like couldn't find a stool. So he ended up getting a bunch of cases of soda and he built me stairs.
Oh my God. That is so cute.
That is very
Yeah.
thoughtful.
So one of my core memories is a stare of soda so that he could get me into bed.
That's amazing.
He should be teaching childbirth classes. How to be, because I think that that's something that a lot of men don't have is just like take initiative and do something, and it's not going to be perfect. It might not be right, but it like that like spark to take action. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people get hung up. So
And I think in the moment I was like really stressed, like, you're gonna leave me? Don't leave me. Why are you leaving me? Like, this is
Yeah.
terrible. But he's like, you gotta get in bed. I gotta get you in bed. And he's like, so yeah.
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing, and he figured it out.
Yeah, he
Figured
did.
it out. It's
With soda
amazing.
boxes.
Cool. Well, and that's great because then you had soda for like those late nights later.
That's right.
Yeah, I probably did. I don't actually remember drinking the soda, but I'm sure I did. Well, we won't hold you up any longer. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me and letting me share my story and a little bit of the
Thank
work I
you.
do. I wish you best of luck too, going forwards. Thank you for keeping me awake in the middle of the night when I'm driving back from long
Yay.
layover. Hopefully our paths cross again.
Thank you so much, Suzzie.
And thanks for giving me like the time to talk about my births. I guess I didn't realize I never had.
Yeah, that was
Well,
actually
I'd love
really
to
neat.
hear more about that.
Did you like the episode that you heard today? Great. Share it with a friend and don't forget to rate and review.